So in 2025, it's time for a rebrand. And I'm not talking about rebranding your wardrobe. I'm not talking about your Insta feed. I'm not talking about how you look. Sure, we've all had that experience where we've bought something new and we feel like a different person. Like we feel rebranded, maybe for a week, maybe not even 24 hours, until we're back in those same emotions, feeling like the exact same person. You will never go further than the limits of your own identity. When we rebrand our identity, everything else shifts. Our behaviors, our actions, our habits, our mindset, everything shifts to fall in line with the identity. Basically, the way that you perceive yourself dictates everything else within your life. Your identity is a collection of thoughts, beliefs, and basically the stories that you keep telling yourself, whether or not they're true or not. These internal stories that you keep telling yourself basically limit the level of success and happiness that you allow to come into your life. That means that you can't go further than what you actually believe is possible for you. When I was 17 years old, just about to turn 18, I joined the Defense Force. Essentially, this meant I went from being on a casual wage to a full-time income, which was considered pretty high at the time, especially to like my peers and friend groups around me. So I was living pretty well. I got to upgrade my car, my wardrobe, my lifestyle. I was able to go to all of these nice events. And so at this point in my life, I was feeling pretty good and my confidence was at an all-time high. Shift to when I enrolled into university and I took a significant pay cut, obviously, and my life really adapted to being a full-time student. So within this, my income dropped, my lifestyle dropped, and a whole lot of other things changed as well. And that's when I truly realized that if you're letting your external shape how you think, feel, and act, then you're never going to have lasting change. You're always going to ebb and flow. So true change comes from your identity. So if we want to rebrand our identity, we have to let go of that old self, that old identity first, because there's no rebirth without first death. So this is the difficult thing because we're always tied between the person that we used to be and we have those memories, associations, and we try and hold ourselves there, and other people do as well because that's what they expect. They want us to be consistent to that old identity, but then we're torn between our future self, who we could become, and our potential. That old version of you is tied to survival, comfort, and safety. If you want to get something that you've never had before, you have to be willing to become somebody that you've never been before. So growth does come with a sacrifice. And I think personal growth can be looked at this thing where it's beautiful and aesthetic and we're rebranding and we look good and we smell good. And those things are great. They come as a byproduct. Personal growth, it comes with discomfort. It comes with resistance and reflection and overcoming. So if we want to make lasting change, we have to do more than shift the external. It's one thing to clean out your wardrobe, to change your looks, to change those external things. Though if you don't have the identity of someone that can maintain that, then it's going to go back to the way it was. And I think that the perfect example of this is if you clean out your wardrobe, freshen it all up, and you fold all of your clothes, though you don't actually have the habit of keeping it tidy. Every time you wear a shirt, you chuck one back in, you don't hang it back up. Like give it probably a week if you're lucky, and it's going to be messy again. 3-6 months later where you have to do the whole thing again, because although you changed a behavior and you changed an act one time, you didn't change the identity to then form into the behavior of changing that consistently, because your behaviors and your actions, they're always going to fall in line with who you see yourself as. If you see yourself as an organized, clean person, your behaviors will follow. But if you try to change the behavior without first addressing the identity, you're always going to fall short and you're always going to come to resistance and never have lasting change. One of the best analogies on your identity and how that impacts your life, I think, comes from the book The Power of One More by Ed Mylett. If you haven't listened to Ed Mylett's podcast, like, what are you doing? It is incredible. You need to get onto it. His book, it talks about your identity being like the thermostat for your life. And we all know what a thermostat does. Essentially, it's going to set the temperature for a room. So whether it's a 40-degree day, if the thermostat is set to 21 degrees, it might go up a little bit as the temperature rises, but it's always going to bring it back down to that 21 degrees. So like a thermostat, your identity regulates your self-worth. I think a great way to look at it is the level of income that you make. So if you've been making for the last 5 years $70,000 and maybe you get a promotion and you're able to increase that to $80,000, but if your identity stays as someone that only makes $70,000 and you're not worthy of more, then you're going to find a way to put the air conditioning on for your life. So you might start self-sabotaging, you might start negative tendencies, falling into old patterns. So your current reality and the external results that you have is not a reflection of your desires or the goals that you hold. It's just a mirror of what your subconscious beliefs are. So ask yourself, like, what are these beliefs costing you? What are they holding you back from achieving? And are they serving you? So now that we have the knowledge on how to actually rebrand, now we can get to the practical stuff. So when we look to step into a new identity, we're going to use 3 key tools to get us there. The first step is always going to be awareness. So we need to be aware of our thoughts, behaviors, emotions before we can make any change. And the reason is we need to become so familiar with the identity we no longer want to associate so then we can step into that new identity. So my favorite way to do this is through meditating. Because when you meditate, the whole purpose of that is to becoming familiar with yourself and the thoughts and behaviors that you have. And when you start doing this on a regular basis, you start to become aware of those thought patterns when they come up, not only in the meditation, but throughout the day. And awareness is the first step to any change. So if you're just walking around on autopilot and you're doing the same things day in and day out, how can you expect to get a different result? So a great example of this is when you think of your mind like a garden. And if you leave it unattended, you're going to get limiting beliefs, negative thoughts that ultimately come up. And meditation is the process that you use to become aware of those negative thoughts and limiting beliefs that are holding you back and stopping your garden from growing. So to rebrand, what we're going to do is start adding in a meditation practice. And this is not going to be easy. This is probably going to be the hardest part of your rebrand, but this is going to be the biggest needle mover within your journey. So at any point throughout the day, you can set a 10-minute timer and you're going to sit there. It's going to feel like the longest 10 minutes of your life. I remember when I first started and I would be scared that I didn't put the timer on, I was going to be late for work. But once you start doing it consistently, you're going to become aware of those thought patterns that keep popping up for you. And the best part about that is then you'll start to notice those popping up throughout the day as well and see how they're literally dictating and ruling your life, the decisions you make, the emotions that you hold throughout the day. You'll start to see how those are shaping your reality. So once we've built in a consistent meditation practice, we're going to look to start journaling. So you can ask yourself, like, who do I want to step into in 2025? What do their traits, behaviors, beliefs, what do they look like? Get really clear on that, and then get really clear on what's holding you back from your meditation, like the limiting beliefs that are coming up for you that are stopping you from reaching that goal, the behaviors that you keep doing. Write those down to become aware of them. And then you can just start questioning, like, why do I think this way? What evidence do I have that suggests this? And then you can start literally just plucking those beliefs out that no longer serve you. The last tool that we're going to use in our rebrand is visualization. And visualization is such an easy one to use because you already use it. Like, think about times when you've had a meeting coming up and you know that you're going to have to speak to a group of people. And when you think of that, you start to feel like you're already there. You start to get a little bit sweaty, you get nervous, maybe you get a little bit red, and your body literally feels like it's having that experience. So if we already know how effective it is to visualize and how we can draw those emotions back to our body, then why are we not using that for our own benefit? And I really learned the power of visualization when I was training to run a marathon. So I remember we were training every single day. It was so hard. And I started to get limiting beliefs like, I don't think I can do this. And I remember speaking to one of the personal trainers at my gym, and he'd run Ironmans, triathlons. So he was my go-to guy. So I started picking his brain, and he said, just get really clear on what that journey is going to look like for you. Like, visualize the success, like you running across the finish line, but also visualize the obstacles that you're going to have inevitably along the way. Visualize yourself when you're struggling up the hill at 30 kilometers. Visualize yourself wanting to stop, but you don't. So visualize the struggle and the pain along the journey just as much as you do of the success. So then when that struggle does come, you know you can overcome it because you've trained your brain to go through that process before. So when we start to use this towards our goals, say that you have a presentation coming up at work and you know that you have to present to 100 people. If you start visualizing yourself getting up there and speaking charismatically, that's amazing because you're visualizing the end product, but also visualize yourself like putting in the reps, like training in front of people, practicing, going to public speaking lessons, all of those things as well. So you start to become really familiar with that habit. So if we feel like we've done something before, it feels familiar, it feels comfortable, we're going to be able to perform that task a lot easier than if we've never done it before. So using those 3 tools, you can start to completely rebrand and shift your identity so you can make real change within 2025. So I'll drop some resources within the bio. I'll drop some books that I'd recommend to start that learning journey. So if you feel like you know everything you need to be doing, but there's a gap between who you are now, the thoughts, belief, and actions you have, and the person that you envision yourself becoming, then we can help you through the version 2.0 program. Within the program, we give you structured frameworks, guidance and support, and a community of like-minded people to help you step into that new identity. All you have to do is click the link in the bio, watch the short video, and book in a call so then we can help you on your journey to becoming that future version of yourself. If you have any other questions, feel free to drop a comment, hit me up on Instagram, and thank you so much for watching.